Hi, Stefano Molea here, San Diego criminal defense lawyer and partner at the law office of DVP Shapiro, where we help good people regain control of their future when charged with a crime. So a lot of times people ask, hey, I feel like I'm getting overcharged in this criminal case, right? And so we want to talk a little bit about what does being overcharged really mean, okay? So first, let's get some terminology out of the way. When someone is arrested for a crime, they're going to be booked on certain charges. A lot of times people make the mistake of believing that those are the charges that will be prosecuted eventually, that the person is formally charged with through a complaint. That's not always the case. Law enforcement is going to make their own determination about what they believe they have probable cause to arrest somebody for, and that's what they're going to book them under when they place them in custody, put them in jail, and then based on the booking charges, that's how the automatic bail is sort of figured out pursuant to the bail schedule for the specific county, of course, in my case, and in our case, San Diego County. And so what you are booked for is not always what you're charged with. So let me give you an example. I mean, I've had cases where I've had a client booked for murder and then they're charged with an accessory, right? Which is far less severe than a homicide, obviously. Same thing, I've had a client booked under a robbery and then they're charged with a simple misdemeanor. And so it's important to understand that the booking process is definitely separate and totally different than someone actually being charged. So someone gets booked, you get the booking charges, then ultimately let's say that the prosecutor decides to actually file charges. And in that scenario, sometimes someone will feel, look, I feel overcharged, right? Yeah, maybe I did something that wasn't right. Maybe I violated the law, broke the law in some way, but it's definitely not what they're charging me with. Like, that's crazy. Why would they do that? And so there's a couple reasons for that, right? Sometimes. One is the prosecutor can be dealing with very limited information at the time that they are going to make a decision to file charges. Now, we have to assume, just for the sake of this discussion, that a prosecutor is acting ethically, meaning they are looking at what is available as far as evidence and they're making a good faith decision to file charges based on a good faith belief that they can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And so sometimes that information is limited, right? That's why we have a criminal justice system where we have both sides, and it's an adversarial type of system where a defense attorney or a defense law firm can come in and a team of people can kind of help level out the playing field, as it were. And so that's part of my job as a criminal defense lawyer. It's to present evidence that the prosecutor may not have, to point them to obtain evidence that they may not have considered, and to give them a totally different perspective on the evidence so that the context can better show what the truth really is. And sometimes that will result in a dismissal at times, right? When it's obviously evident that no crime was committed, or if the evidence is that really what was sort of acted on, right, or what the alleged crime actually is far less serious than what they're charged with, then that's where the plea bargaining comes in, and that's when the prosecutor can be shown the reasons why the case is not worth what they charged originally. Okay, so just wanted to kind of give a brief overview of that to provide some context as far as terminology and to provide at least my perspective on occasions where sometimes someone is in fact charged with something that they have no business being charged with, and that's why you have advocates on the other side representing the interest, telling the story, and representing the person who's accused of a crime, not just relying on one perspective, which is going to be law enforcement and the prosecutors. So hope this discussion was somewhat helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or feel free to give us a call. Again, Stefano Molea, partner at the law office of DVP Shapiro here in San Diego, 619-295-3555.